Well, the holidays, many people, of course, are all thinking about celebration, but for some, it can be a difficult time of year if you've lost somebody close to you, if you've lost a loved one. I am joined today by Stephanie Erickson, family caregiving expert, and Corey Sirota, who is a grief, loss, and bereavement specialist. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thanks,
Great to have you here. And Stephanie, I think, the first thing that comes to mind for me, and I've lost family members, and, as the holidays come up, I think you start feeling guilty. Right? You struggle with this guilt. Am I allowed to give myself permission to enjoy the holidays? Is that something that you think a lot of people go through?
Absolutely, and I think that actually happens even when it's not the holidays, especially right after you lose somebody. If 2 weeks later you find yourself laughing, you're like, oh my God, what's wrong with me?
Right.
My dad just died, why am I laughing? And I think at the holidays it's just kind of emphasized a bit more. Yeah, and people feel really bad because they feel like if they're somehow celebrating and having a good time, then it minimizes the loss.
Yeah, and I know you just recently wrote an article on this, Corey, and you're saying, of course you're going to think about that person. There's always that memory, but look around the table and maybe appreciate the people who are there, right?
Well, that's exactly it. We're so focused on the loss and the death of someone close to us that we forget that there's a whole table of people, hopefully, that are there who do you still have?
Right.
So to keep in mind, who do you still have?
Yeah, and and that's not always the case. And you just mentioned that. You say, hopefully you have, but what if, sometimes you're maybe, a senior and you've lost somebody, and that was the only person in your life. How does somebody like that, manage to get through the holidays?
So it's a great question. There are lots of resources out there. The challenge is how do you access those resources? So, for example, you're familiar with the camp I run for children, bereaved children. We made a holiday party recognizing that these families may not have the same kind of experiences because of the significant losses in their lives.
Right.
So there are community centers and social service centers. So I would encourage people to reach out and make some phone calls to access those places, because nobody has to be or nobody should be alone.
So, Stephanie, what's the first step then for somebody that is going through the grieving process?
First of all, accept that there's a grieving process. And process means there's no start and no end. It just I guess there's a start. When somebody dies, that starts the grieving process. Right. But there's really no end. It's just ongoing. It evolves. It changes. And that's okay. So I think embracing those feelings, sharing those feelings with someone else is really important to process it so that we can then enjoy the celebration.
Rituals are probably a good idea as well, Corey, to sort of, honor that person. Right. What kind of rituals would you recommend that somebody
So there's a whole host of rituals one can do, and I like to use the word traditions because people often feel like, well, holidays especially, there's traditions. You have the choice. You don't have to follow the same traditions.
Right.
I use the term new normals because your life has been changed significantly. So things that you can do, and Stephanie and I have discussed this before, are things personal to you, like lighting a candle, a special ornament on the tree, going to visit the gravesite, writing something about the person, talking about the person are very typical. They could be heartfelt. They could be difficult, but they're very important things that even though the person's not there, the connection can still remain.
I think it's interesting what Corey's saying too, Stephanie, that you've had those traditions for so many years, and maybe you've wanted to do something different, but you just kind of got you got stuck in that situation where that's our tradition. People should feel comfortable doing something different.
100%. You can change it up all the time. So if, I don't know, let's say your favorite snack is, I don't know, brownies or something like that, and then that all of a sudden is integrated into the dinner where you would never have brownies in your traditional dinner, but now brownies is always a dessert. And for my family, because my father has passed away, he loved cheap wine in a box. Seriously, like it's disgusting wine. But when the holidays
I hope my mom's watching, because that's exactly what she drinks too. That's hilarious.
But we pull out this cheap wine and we gulp down a disgusting glass. But it's fun, and it honors my father, and it's funny, and we're laughing about his horrible taste.
Corey, is it important to remember too what that person would want? And by that I don't mean their traditions, but what they would want from you, right?
So I love that question because Steph and I have debated it. I think that only you know the person really well. So my only concern is not to get caught up in somebody else's, you should do this, or what would they have wanted.
Right.
Because I don't want anyone to feel guilty about or pressured into what they think they should be doing. Stopping should on is what I say. But you know the person, so if you feel like, oh, they would love if I did this, that's great. Then for you, what is it that you would do that they enjoy, like the wine or anything else that they would like?
I love the wine story. That's a great story. Thanks to you both for being here. It's
Thanks,
always
Derek.
a pleasure having you.
Thank
So you're
you.
going to stick around. We've
Yeah.
got some chats a little bit later. So
Yeah.
Stephanie's going to stick around and talk to Catherine and I. We've got a couple of great subjects to chat about on today's show. We'll be back with more right after this.